It's the Fitness Lab Pittsburgh podcast, a new episode every week. A podcast about movement, part of making your life complete. Fitness Lab Pittsburgh, aka FitLab PGH, brings you interviews with people in the Pittsburgh area who understand movement is part of what makes life complete. Looking for a new movement idea or just want to hear interesting stories about people who make movement a priority? This is the podcast for you. Whether you consider the gym, dojo, or fitness studio your third place, or just want to learn more about movement, activity, and fitness to enhance your life, give FitLab PGH a listen. We interview locals in the Pittsburgh area who make Pittsburgh a great place to move. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Subscribing is free and gives you notifications when we release new episodes. Each podcast episode will be long enough to pique your interest and short enough to hold your attention. Have an idea for an episode? Know somebody we should interview? Or just want to connect with us? Drop us an email, fitlabpgh@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter or Instagram at fitlabpgh. Already a fan of FitLab PGH? Check out our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast for movement professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers weekly interviews with movement professionals featuring topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope you enjoy our next interview, starting now. FitLab PGH and our sister podcast, Moving to Live, firmly believe that movement should be treated as a lifestyle, not just an activity. That's why FitLab PGH, in addition to our weekly podcasts, releases movement tip and lifestyle hack 1-minute videos on most social media channels every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And every Thursday on our webpage, we feature a written FitLab Pittsburgh features. If you're a 2-legged or 4-legged mover in the Pittsburgh area, check out our website for more information to be featured. If you like our interviews, please leave us some feedback on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast app you listen to. Drop us a message if you've got an idea for a future interview, you want to be featured on FitLab Pittsburgh Features, or you just want to let us know something about movement in the Pittsburgh area. FitLab PGH back with another podcast interview. We are here with somebody that sent in a FitLab Pittsburgh Features questionnaire, and I have to confess, because I am a geek and remember everything I read, I recognized her name and immediately blamed her for spending literally thousands and thousands of dollars, but blamed her in a good way. And I wanted to interview her because I know anybody who has been moving for most of her life is going to be somebody who has an interesting story that people are going to want to hear, because we really believe that movement should be a lifestyle. We are here with Elaine Tierney. She is the owner of Mossy Lane Products, and the reason that I recognized her name is way back in the day when my parents lived up near Prospect. She was one of the founders of Dirt Rag Magazine, which was one of the most readable magazines in the first, or one of the first magazines to actually recognize that mountain biking was something that was not something you just did on occasion or only did out west. You could actually do it in the Pittsburgh area and all over the East Coast.
1988.
So I think I first saw it in 1991 or 92.
Nice.
So Elaine, I want to thank you for talking to FitLab Pittsburgh. I'm excited to hear how somebody other than me has decided that movement is a regular part of their life, no matter what they do in career iterations.
Yeah, it totally is. My intro into exercise came from my parents, for sure. Both moved constantly. My father was a football coach, a soccer coach, a teacher, and my mother was basically just somebody who wanted to keep in shape. So in my house, get outside was pretty much the mantra. So we did.
And I'm curious, when you were growing up, and I know we have no idea what your age is, we're not going to ask, but I know you're somewhere, if you were around in 1988, you're somewhere around my age. Parents, that was not a normal thing where parents wanted to stay in shape. That was, did you find?
Right. No, they were definitely different than my friends' parents.
And that was going to be my question.
Yeah. definitely. But, and I don't mind talking about my age, but this was more like the 70s. So, before Title IX. So, because my dad always says, like, once that came into, like, I could have been a professional golfer or something. Like, he laments that he wasn't pushing me as hard as he was pushing my brother, because my brother ended up playing for Pitt on the national championship team. So he always looks back at that and goes, dang, if I'd have known that girls were going to be able to do something.
But there must have been something about the movement, because I know people I've talked to who were growing up before Title IX, there weren't those opportunities for women. There wasn't the opportunity to play youth soccer. There weren't all these organized sports.
No. So I played softball in high school. Tried basketball. I wasn't that great at it. And then went away to college and played ultimate frisbee. That was
if you can remember, what was it?
Or flag football.
Ultimate frisbee or flag football. And what was it that kept you moving? Because I know a lot of times when you talk to people who are competitive athletes who are forced by mom and dad to play sports, it's like, or even people who compete at a high level, at some point when they recognize, okay, I've peaked in performance, whether it's in high school, whether it's in college, whether they go on beyond that, it's kind of like, I'm done exercising.
No, you know what? Because for us in our family, it wasn't about playing sports. It was about moving. Like, we always had a bicycle. Always, always, always had a bicycle. So it was riding to the park, riding to the pool. That's just what you did.
And I know if you wanted to go someplace, it sounds like my childhood. It's like, well, you got your bike, go.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that's what we did. Yep. Yeah. So it was, and then in college, I took my bike with me. And I mean, I can't say I did that much moving in college, which is, why the freshman 15 comes on.
And that's a question I always ask people when they go to college, when we interview them. When you go to college, did you continue to move, or was there a time period off and then it came back? And it's about 50-50.
Yeah. So then I came home and my mother was like, wait a minute. This isn't what I taught you.
My favorite story with that is one of the individuals we interviewed said that he had gained some weight when he stopped competing as a cross-country runner. He said his father, who was a physical therapist, and his brother, who was a physical therapist, talked to him. I said, oh, they explained it to you? He said, no, they shamed me into being more active.
Yeah. So then, when we came back, I mean, Maurice and I got married and we started mountain biking. Because that was just starting to come out, and our friend Barry at Dirty Harry's had a bike shop, and it used to be a motorcycle shop, and then he started moving in bicycles, so we bought bicycles. So we were like 26, 27, 28, so that's where it just picked up, and then once you start that, you don't stop. I'm still doing it to this day.
And thanks to the wonders of the internet, I know that was the mid-'80s. And you and I were talking before recording.
Right.
My first mountain bike came in 1989. It was a used Specialized stump jumper.
Yeah.
And it isn't like people think today with electronic shifting and suspension. This had no suspension. I think mine, which was probably a little more modern than your first one, it did have index shifting, but it also had biopace or oval chain rings.
Right. Yeah. See, I just ride them. Mm-hmm. I don't really take care of them. But yeah, they were hardcore bikes, and it was hard. And then, once we started Dirt Rag, then they started sending us new things, and RockShox came out, and we're like, what the heck? At first we were kind of grumpy. We're like, who needs this? You don't need this.
I've said that about clipless pedals.
Right. Everything. And then Camelback came out. It was really fun to see all of these new innovations come out. And we were there.
And I know my dad's 80-something. He still rides. He rode when he lived up in Prospect, Pennsylvania. But I remember when he got a lighter bike, and you can appreciate this, his comment was, wow, this is so much more enjoyable to ride.
Yes.
And then he switched from flat pedals to power grips, which aren't quite clipless pedals, but they're a way to support your hip. And his comment was, wow, it's so much easier to ride. And I think that's one of the things that people forget. There are the techno weenies. It's like, ooh, I just dropped 3 ounces off my bike.
Right.
But most of these technological changes, if the bikes were back the way they were when you first started riding, and then when I came and started riding, not as well known as you with the riding, I don't think you'd have as many people out there trying to bike because it was hard. You had to really want to suffer.
You know what? And it's still hard. I was just out riding a couple of weeks ago at North Park, and
same hills.
Same hills. And I got to the end and I said to myself, people always ask me, well, why don't more women ride? And, all my interviews being a dirt rag editor, why don't more women ride? 'Cause it's effing hard. It's never easier, ever. Like, is it fun? Absolutely. But it's hard.
And I think that's something that some people who maybe don't have a lifestyle of moving. I'm sure when you were a kid and mom and dad said get out, maybe if they were like me, you went on hikes or maybe canoe trips. There were times where you just wanted to quit, but you knew you couldn't quit because you had to get back to the car and you knew you were too big for dad to carry you.
It's a hard sport.
And I think the question some people are going to ask, I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine who lives in Colorado who said, it's hard, but I really like climbing the hills on the fire roads more than bombing down them because I just enjoy the sense of accomplishment.
Oh, yeah.
For people who don't move, though, I mean, and you're somebody who's been involved in moving all your life, as you said, you've let them in on the little secret. It's hard. But why should people move more if it's hard? Why should they get on a bike? And I personally think biking is one of the best ways to move.
Yeah, because when you're done, it feels so good. It feels so good when you're done. Because I've taken up trail running now too. And yoga is a relatively new thing to me, like 7 or 8 years now. And it's all hard. Like even stepping into that yoga class, you got to get yourself there. But then once you leave, you have a smile on your face. It's good. It's good.
And I think one of the things that happens when you grow up, just where movement is a norm, it's not like, okay, you have to work out. You recognize that it's hard, but you also recognize the benefits. I mean, there can be a really hard mountain bike ride, or there can be a really hard trail run where maybe you break a shoelace or you trip and fall. But when you finish, almost always your mindset, I found, is better than when you started.
Right. And you know what I try to do for what works for me? I never say I'm going to work out. I never say I'm dieting. Because the minute you say that, the minute I go on a diet, I'm hungry. And I'm going to eat something I shouldn't. And then I'm going to feel bad. And I never say I'm going to work out. Yeah, I'm going to the park and I'm going to run for an hour and probably do 20 minutes of yoga. But that's not a workout to me. That's just fun. Life. It's just life. Yeah. And if you happen to feel good, I would imagine maybe that hour, if you have the time, becomes an hour and a half because you recognize, hey, there may be some days where it's hot, you just don't feel it. And rather than an hour, hey, it's 30 minutes. Right. But it's not the end of the world. You don't beat yourself up. Hey, I've gotten my bike out and ridden around my yard for a couple of laps, or up and down the street and back. But, it's because there was 4 days of rain. You didn't do anything. So, I mean, if you're a mover, if you go too long, your body just kind of makes you get up. You just have to. It just...
I had the good fortune to interview a good friend of mine. It hasn't aired yet for my other podcast, Moving to Live, who is a career military officer. And he was describing how before he had to give briefings, he would go out for a run and he would go through the briefing, how he and his executive officer would go for a run and solve the problems of what he was working. And he said, my wife will probably kill me for saying this, but I really believe, and he's a runner, whereas you're a biker primarily. His comment says, I really believe that most problems can be solved in your head by going for a run. And I think that's something, one of the reasons I start FitLab Pittsburgh and want to talk to people like you who understand that and get that, is because so many people don't get that. And it may be the absolute worst workout. You may get rained on, you may have a flat tire and end up pushing your bike back or have to send anybody out to get it. But almost always, maybe not immediately when you finish, but 20, 30, 40 minutes later, or an hour later, if you're fortunate enough to be able to stop maybe at over the bar cafe and have a beer, it's like, that was kind of fun. And when the tire popped or when I tripped going up the hill, I never really noticed the trail from that sense. And I think people miss that if they don't find a way to move. And I know one of the things that's very hard for people is, especially as we've talked about the technology changes in mountain biking, it can be scary. I mean, it can be complicated. Back when they first came out with bikes, and I know, I don't remember the name, but there was the documentary on the history of mountain bikes and how they used to race down with modified beach cruisers. Essentially, any bike, I think, can be ridden. And we've, on the one hand, the technology has improved to make them more fun.
Right.
But on the other hand, you can ride anything. And I think that's a way to do it. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you, because as you said, you a lifetime mover, you're somebody who it was set up by your parents where it was kind of the norm. When you have people who don't work out, I mean, you've got a nice shop here. We should give a little shout out to Mossy Lane Products, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes about how it came to be. But you have people come in and I know you described to Lisa, my girlfriend, you said, this is a really nice skirt to wear over your bike shorts. Mm-hmm. Some people are going to come in and look at your clothes and go, boy, those are really cute. And you're going to say that, and you can just tell there's a glazed look in their eyes. Do you try to talk to them about this, or you just kind of say, hey, I just want to make the sale?
No, I do talk to people about that. Because I know but everybody's going to arts festivals, everybody's, and we have the bike trail right here, which hopefully is eventually going to come up past Millville. So you might as well look good while you're doing it and be more comfortable. Because I know a lot of women of a certain age, yada, yada, they don't want to put on bike shorts and go for a ride. It's too much trouble.
And it feels almost like, and I'm saying this in air quotes, a workout, whereas maybe you're just riding up the trail to get to the arts festival or the pizza shop.
And you're not going to find something that fits the body of someone who isn't a mover. You're just not. So wear something, and I even make shorts that, if you're just riding from Millville to downtown and back, you don't need the big bike shorts. You don't need to clip in. You don't, just get on it and do it.
Then that'll be my question that I always ask bikers that I interview. Out of curiosity, how many bicycles do you own?
Well, I own two okay. All right. That's not, I was going to say I own two that are working right now, but that's not true. I have three that are working right now. And then a couple that are just hanging up as,
They just need the parts, or they're just something you can't get rid of.
No, there's just things I can't get rid of, Yeah, this is like a Ted Wojcik that was made just for me. I'm not going to get rid of that. It was made just for me with my dimensions and everything. So that's hanging up in a nice spot. And then we tried to start a company called Bluestone. So I have a titanium bluestone frame I won't get rid of. And that's a single speed. So you have to keep a single speed. And then I have my nice mountain bike that I use. And then I have my commuter bike. And then my newest one is an e-bike. So I got an e-bike to commute because from where I live to Sharpsburg is 5 miles uphill or downhill. And I wasn't going to ride my bike every day. And I knew I can't go all week and not ride something. So got the e-bike. Now I can just ride that to work.
And I'm
Don't
curious,
have to use my car.
My dad just got an e-bike a few months ago. And he's actually had one time where the battery went dead and he had to ride the bike up the hill with the battery, and the bike weighs 40-some pounds. But I'm curious, on days when you feel good with the e-bike, do you use less power when you go up the hill?
Oh, yeah. Well, no. But I do use less. Like on the way here, I try not to use any power because it's all just little undulations. So if I can't do that, I got to keep that going. But no, going up, I'm in turbo, baby. There's no reason for me to suffer if I don't have to.
And I think this is a great opportunity to talk about. I'm one of those people who probably until about a year and a half ago thought, oh, an e-bike is cheating.
Oh, I know. I went through all of that too.
And then I was talking to a friend of mine who lives out in Colorado, and his wife is very petite and she likes to ride, but when they ride together at elevation going up mountains, there's no way they could ride together.
Right.
So she got an e-bike, and it's allowed them to ride together.
Right.
And when she wants to put him in his place, she can give it just a little extra juice.
Exactly.
But
But I mean, all the e-bike does is allow you to ride when you couldn't ride before. So I'm all for it. I tell everybody about it. Everybody, because I think everybody should have one. If they're not getting out there and riding without one, then get one. No, it's not cheating at all. It's anything to get people outside, because that's where people should be. And you're speaking after my heart. I mean, I believe in moving, but I also believe moving outside is even better from the fresh air, the birds, whatever else happens on. Yeah, you just got to get outside. And if that's what it takes to get you outside, I have a friend who's like in his 70s and was getting depressed because he couldn't ride his mountain bike. It was just too hard. And then he got an e-bike. He smiles every day now. I mean, because now he can be outside again. And so, no, I'm all for e-bikes. I think they're great. And I know you can educate some people who are maybe listening. An e-bike doesn't mean you can just sit there and not pedal. You still have to pedal. And I think that's a key point. It just gives you some assistance. You still have to pedal. Yeah. And I think that was one of the things when I first said, oh, that's cheating. And then I went and looked at it. I was like, oh, I don't think I'm quite ready for it because I'm a masochist and like to suffer. Right. But I could see the day where there was something in a really cool design. Right. Or maybe I get to the point where physically I'm not able to, or if I had a commute where I was... Or just commute, yeah. I work from home, so that's okay. My commute is downstairs to the espresso machine and back up to my office. And like you were saying, like for couples, it really is a great thing because even if we were doing rails to trails, I was either working way too hard and not having fun and whining, or he was riding so slow that he wasn't getting what he wanted from the ride. So now I can take this and, I can even go faster than he can go now, which is great. And this is the perfect time to ask the question. I know the answer, but some of the listeners, why not? Some people would say, isn't that the perfect reason to get a tandem? Oh, hell no. No, I am not a fan in tandems at all. We're talking with Elaine Tierney. She is the owner of Mossy Lane Products, a lifetime mover. And if you mountain bike and you've spent, as I have, thousands of dollars on bicycles, and you mountain bike in the Pittsburgh area, she's one of the people you can either give credit for or blame for. And I know we were talking before recording. You are no longer involved with mountain biking. You had another career as a teacher, a special ed teacher. I left Dirt Rag in 2000, I think, and then went back and got my graduate degree in special education. And then you have left that, and you now have Mossy Lanes. And now I have a clothing store, and I'm designing clothes, yes. So I design and hand make everything in the store. And we are in downtown Sharpsburg. Downtown Sharpsburg. It's been great, yes. And this October, I'll be in Pittsburgh Fashion Week showing my designs. So it's a whole nother world. But I love being able to design. I mean, this all started because I couldn't find bike clothes I wanted and yoga clothes that I wanted. Everything was made for 20-somethings, and they just weren't working for me. So everything in here is meant to be comfortable for people that move. And I think what's interesting with that is back when you started being involved in mountain biking, proper clothing didn't really exist for mountain biking. It was wool shorts and other things and things that just didn't work. So well, I just grabbed whatever free t-shirt we were given after the race, and that's what we wore, And I know one of the things that really shocked me when I stopped racing as much is all of a sudden my t-shirt collection got very, very small. Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh, the Hidden Valley Challenge and the 24 Hours of Canaan, and we had t-shirts for everything. I know one of the questions that I ask people who have done some sort of activity and raced, and I know you've done a little bit of racing, is a lot of times when people realize that, okay, I'm no longer getting faster, maybe they stop doing that activity, they find some other activity. I know we interviewed for Moving to Live a gentleman who works in strength and conditioning for disc golf, and I saw on one of his Instagram feeds that there's a former professional baseball pitcher who's now playing disc golf professionally. Wow.
What was it when you got to the point where it's like, I'm no longer going to go out when it's -5 degrees and do a mountain bike race? Or what was it that when you got out of racing so much that kept you riding as opposed to saying, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to take up spin class, or I'm going to take up step class, because step class is back now.
Yeah, no. I did have a little stint through the step aerobics craze back when Jane Fonda was...
It's back.
I had Jane Fonda's album that I would move to. But no, when I got out of racing, it just got to be more fun then, because I never enjoyed racing anyway.
And I'll put you on the spot for this, because I think this is something that people who don't move on a regular basis don't understand. You just said racing wasn't really fun. And I know racing, I remember doing an Ironman with a friend of mine. And when he finished, he goes, that was okay, but I really enjoyed the training more. But you described racing as not being fun. You described mountain biking and trail running as being, hard. For people who don't move, for people like me who are movers, like, yeah, I get it. I understand absolutely, completely. For people who don't move, maybe they want to move. And there is a barrier, because some people who are regular movers have an attitude. I'm not implying you have an attitude. Sometimes they look at it and they walk into a bike shop and, all they see are $5,000 bicycles. It's like, well, I'm not going to get in to spend that much. What can people who are maybe wanting to move more, wanting to get into the outside, and basically aren't sure where to start or how to find people who are like you, who are approachable and say, yeah, it sucks, it's hard, but boy, it's great at the end. Where can they find ideas to do this? Because there's so much information out there, which is a good thing, but there's so much information out there, which is a bad thing.
Right. I don't know. I think people should just take it easy. Just go for a walk. That's what I try to tell people that are obviously not moving, and I don't mean to put them down or whatever, but just go for a walk. And I'm so big on the outdoors that just go for a walk in your local park. That's all you got to do.
I was thinking a few weeks ago, my baseline movement is 4 or 5 hours a week walking my dogs.
Yeah.
That actually gets more in the winter, because it's colder when people tend to be less active. That's when the dogs say, we want to go longer. We want to go farther.
Yeah, the winter's great. Cross-country skiing is my absolute hands down favorite thing to do. Unfortunately, we don't get enough snow around here. But it always cracks me up in the winter when people say, I hope it doesn't snow. And I'm like, please, snow, dump it on.
You sound like my Rolfer Brian Joly, who is a hardcore cross-country skier also.
I love it. See, and again, that's hard too. But it feels so good. Like, you're doing your body good when you come back and it hurts.
And I know
which people don't like to hurt. That's funny to say, but it just does. You're sweaty and you hurt and you lay down and that beer tastes so good afterward.
And I know we're doing this interview in late August, and I have lived in the past in Atlanta, Georgia, Auburn, Alabama, and in Florida. And when people from Pittsburgh look at me, they say, why did you move up here? And I say, job. And they say, well, don't you miss the weather? And honestly, I don't, because when it's hot and humid, there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
When it's cold, you can put on a Mossy Lane design over a Mossy Lane design.
That's right.
But you could actually dress for cold. We had the cold snap last year where it was down -5, -10.
Yeah.
And there was some wind chill, but I remember taking my dogs in the woods and they were happy.
Right.
And when I got in the woods, it's like, okay, as long as you keep moving and you make sure that you can get back to the car within 15 minutes, this is actually really nice.
Yeah. I make the arm warmers and fleece gaiters, and I make special, helmet wear that goes underneath your helmet, your bike helmet. So, yeah.
We're talking with
good.
Elaine Tierney. She's the owner of Mossy Lane Products. I'm curious, you said you started this business because you couldn't find things that fit the way you wanted them to fit for your activities. Did you have a background in sewing or in design? Oh,
yeah. See, I called it Mossy Lane because my mom's name was Mossy and I'm Lane. So that was the perfect name. But she's the one who taught me how to sew. Back when I went to school, we had a home economics class where we learned how to sew, but
I made a sweat jacket in home economics.
But she made all my clothes growing up. So that's who taught me how to lay out a pattern and to tweak a pattern and maybe I wanted this part of it, but not that part of it. So we would go together and shop for fabrics and shop for patterns and put them together and make what I wanted. Made my prom dress. So.
Which probably back then there was a tendency, I don't want something that's homemade. And now you're like, wow, that was really cool that she could do that.
Right, exactly. And you're exactly right, because I was mortified. Like, oh my gosh, I want to go and buy the big fancy dress. But no, we made it and we designed it ourselves. We did. It was cool.
So people are listening to this. I know there's, as I said, the internet is so wonderful because there's so much information. It's so bad there's so little information. And they're listening to this. People are interested. Mossy Lane, what does it make? What types of products are available?
I make a little bit of everything, and everything's one of a kind. So every time you come, it's going to be a little different, which I think is fun. But you'll always find the classics of the biking clothes and the yoga clothes. But then everything's just meant to be comfortable and casual. And well, I mean, I have a couple dressy things, but when I go home from work here, and I've exclusively just been wearing my designs for like a year now, I don't immediately go home and want to take them off. Whereas most women, I'm sure, won't relate to that. They're like, oh, let me get this out. Let me get this dress off. You're just casual.
So it's comfortable clothing that can
comfortable
be used
and
for
casual,
whatever the activity.
Yeah. Exactly.
Any plans to start making menswear or men's clothing?
No. I do make base layers. Like my fiance will wear them as a base layer, and he wears my arm warmers, which he says are the best. I mean, he's been riding for 50 years, so he said they're the best arm warmers he's ever worn, and he wears the under helmet things because he commutes to work every day, whether it's 2 feet of snow or not. So I have different, and then he has probably like a stack of them, and one for this temperature, one for that, because I make them out of all different materials. And then, so he comes home and tells me how to tweak them and how to make them better. And
he's the beta tester.
I did make him a fleece jacket last winter, which he wears every single day. I should probably start making a bunch of those. But I don't know. For me, I get the joy out of designing a one-off piece. Like for me to sit down and make 6 of the same things is not really fun.
There are a variety of shops and a variety of fancy neighborhoods in Pittsburgh where you can get that if you want casual wear.
Right. So, yeah, if you want to come in here and just find some really cool fleece jacket that no one else in the world will have, then this is the place. But
we've had the good fortune of being able to chat with Elaine Tierney. She is the owner of Mossy Lane Products. If you're looking for some cool, one-off, interesting, casual, comfortable wear for a variety of outdoor activities, this is the place in Sharpsburg to come. If you are a mountain biker, check out her website just because she is a piece of mountain biking history, and you can either thank her
Hall of Fame, baby.
That's right. I saw that this morning. She and her former husband are members of the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame, which is pretty cool because you consider the Hall of Fame is not that old. It's not like the Baseball Hall of Fame where you have to be dead to get in.
No, that was a great accomplishment. We were very proud of that.
Elaine, thank you for taking time to talk to FitLab Pittsburgh. Now that I know you sell base layers and arm warmers, I'll probably end up spending some money in the next few minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of FitLab PGH, brought to you by Moving to Live. Intro and exit music is Marathon Man by Jason Shaw. Check out the show notes for contact info for our latest guests, links to other information mentioned in the episode, and links to our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast about movement and exercise for professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Your free subscription gets you notified when we release a new episode. Questions, comments, suggestions? Email us at fitlabpgh@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at fitlabpgh and like us on Facebook. If you enjoy our podcasts, please tell your friends about us and consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Make FitLab PGH a go-to place to learn more about movement in the Pittsburgh area. Until next time, keep on moving.